This is music and this is good, but it sounds kind of bad. We all know the situation, listening to a song. It's kind of good actually, but the production kind of lets it down. That's the topic of this video. I'm going to show you 10 items from my production where I think the music is decent, even great in some cases, but the production kind of lets down the album in different ways. Now, a disclaimer, I know that what makes good music and what makes bad music, that's all subjective. I also know that what makes a good production and what makes a bad production is very subjective. So just keep that in mind. There will be some curveballs in here, and there will be some cases where my opinions will make people angry, and what can you do? It's not a ranked list, it's just organized alphabetically according to the artist, and that means that the first item I'm going to show is probably one of those curveballs. AC/DC's Fly on the Wall. I love the songs on here, all of them. I think they're great. Even this is not their most popular album. For example, a lot of people don't like Danger. I love that song. So I like all the songs on here. I think musically it's a great album, but the production doesn't fit the music, I think. We're dealing with your kind of typical 80s stadium rock production where everything, the guitars sound kind of thin, and the vocals sound thin, and everything is kind of drowned in reverb. And I think the entire idea is to make it sound like it would sound performed live in a massive stadium. I just don't think that kind of production fits AC/DC's brand of hard rock. To me, I prefer AC/DC songs with a kind of a raw production, like in their early stuff, and what they kind of return to much later on in the career. Like as if you're in a small studio with them, recording the songs live in one take. I know that's an idealization too, but that's kind of the ideal AC/DC production to me. So the production on Fly on the Wall, not terrible, it just doesn't fit the music, I think. And this represents a string of albums they did in the 80s where I think the music is genuinely, in my opinion, awesome. So this one here, Flick of the Switch, which I think is a fantastic album, and also Blow Up Your Video as an example, which I also think is a fantastic album. It's just that the production is this kind of stadium rock production, and like I said, I don't think it suits AC/DC's music. So there you go. Up next, the next one is going to be controversial. Carcass, Reek of Putrefaction. And yeah, I know this is the censored version. I don't care, to be honest, if I have the censored version or not. I have the uncensored version on CD. Now, this is controversial because there are lots of people out there to whom this is their favorite Carcass album, exactly because of the insane and raw production. And then there are other people to whom it's their least favorite Carcass album, maybe the second least favorite Carcass album, Swan Song being the least favorite one, because of the insane production. We're dealing with, short, chaotic grindcore songs and a very chaotic production where you can barely hear what's going on. So some people love that production, others kind of find it disturbing because the grindcore songs on here are actually, I think they're good. I like them. They're fast, they're furious, they seem chaotic, but part of that to me is the production. So to me, this production on here, the chaotic production, kind of lets down the music. There are other people to whom the chaotic production is perfect for this music. But this is the reason why it's my least favorite Carcass album. I rarely listen to it. I know the band, they kind of don't like it either because of the production. They've said so in some interviews at least. But yeah, some people love it, some people don't like it. I'm on the I don't like the production side of things there. Now, this one here, Finale, maybe, by Crash Box. As far as I remember, it's Italian, but I could be wrong. Crossover thrash, pretty decent music, but the production is just not up there. It's just below what I think is kind of acceptable for an album. It's demo tape quality, which is fine, but this is a studio album, so it's just a bit subpar. It's a decent album, for sure, but I think it would be more enjoyable. The songs would be a little bit more powerful had the production just been a nudge more professional, if you know what I mean. But a pretty good album in any case. Now, controversial, Curveball 2, Pleasures of the Flesh by Exodus. A lot of people love this album. I do too. Problematic picture on the back probably, but that's a discussion for a different time. There's some great songs on here, some quality thrash metal songs. Also, it features my favorite Exodus vocalist. But, and this is interesting, to me it suffers from the same style of production as the AC/DC albums from the kind of mid 80s. It's this kind of stadium rock production, and it just doesn't fit thrash metal, I think. In particular on the drums, it's the sound of the drums that annoys me here. But I think it's because it was kind of the standard rock production in the 80s, and with thrash metal, maybe people didn't really know exactly yet how to, put together a good sounding, in my opinion, thrash metal album. So it sounds thin on here too, and it lacks the punch, in my opinion, that a thrash metal album should have. I much prefer the kind of razor blade guitar tone on the following Exodus albums to what we have here. But this is probably controversial. I think a lot of people love this album and they think the production is great. I think the songs are fantastic on here. Not a big fan of this kind of 80s stadium rock production. Up next, maybe a curveball, maybe controversial too. Iron Maiden's The X Factor. Back when it came out, a lot of people didn't even like the music. I was kind of like in the middle of the road. My appreciation has grown over the years. The highlight to me is actually Blaze Bayley's vocals. There's some great songs on here. There's some not too great songs here too, if I'm being completely honest. But it's okay, musically, ranging from okay to pretty damn good. The production, I think, is kind of weak. I think that's my problem. The guitar tone, I think, is my problem here. The guitars sound like they're kind of panned out a bit, and they have this kind of weird, soft, almost powerless sound. And some of the songs on here are a little bit slower. You got some slow galloping stuff, and when the guitars lack punch, I think it makes like slow galloping sound kind of weak, if you know what I mean. I would have preferred the guitars to have a much more distorted and more crunchy, as it were, guitar tone. Right now, it sounds almost like they are kind of like I said, like to the sides, as it were, and kind of dominated by the bass. Of course, it's Iron Maiden. The bass has to be central, but I just think on this album the guitars sound too weak, and I think it's a shame because there's some great songs on here, like I said, and I actually think Blaze Bayley does a great job on here. The next one, maybe a curveball, maybe controversial, and Justice for All by Metallica. I think the songs on here are great. I do consider this a thrash metal album. You have, long songs, complex songs, lots of riffs, lots of aggression, but also lots of finesse. But of course, you can't hear the bass, and the production is actually really wonky on here in different ways. Like I said, you can't hear the bass. The drums and the vocals are extremely loud, and they have this kind of weird, compact sound in a not great way, and the guitar tone is weird. But this wonky, weird production has become iconic to the point that I don't think I could enjoy this album with maybe like a Black Album style production. So that's the curveball. Great music, kind of wonky production, but it's become iconic to the point that I appreciate it. And there are, YouTube channels out there where they try to, to experiment and make, other songs from other albums sound like they had been recorded as part of And Justice for All. So there you go. The next one, maybe a bit obscure here. Morsure, I think, Acceleration Process. Pretty decent thrash metal. A production that is kind of similar to the Crash Box one. And an extra problem on here is just that the drums sound bad. Especially the bass drums. They sound so weird that it's hard to tell if they are like, if we're dealing with toms sometimes or bass drums. And it strikes me as if the two kind of, whether they use bass drums or just a double pedal, but it sounds like each bass drum or each pedal accentuation sounds kind of different from one another, and that's kind of confusing. There's a similar situation going on one of the Abomination albums, but it's just confusing when you hear the drums and you're not sure exactly what the hell is going on, and it does disturb the music a little bit. But it's a decent album, and it's I can enjoy it despite the weird sounding drums, but it could have been better. Up next, this is gonna be controversial. Testament, The New Order, fantastic thrash metal album, but this also, in my opinion, suffers from that kind of tinny stadium rock production. So I think again it's a matter of the producers at the time still not having figured out exactly how to make a thrash metal album sound good. Some people love this album and they love the production, and that's great. Power to you. I love this album too because the music is so great that it kind of carries the production. But I think it would have sounded better with more punchy guitars. So, but I'm sure some people got mad at me for highlighting this album. But there you go. It's just my opinion. Up next, maybe kind of obscure too. Thrash Queen Manslayer. Kind of is historically important because they were one of the few all ladies thrash metal bands, more speed metal perhaps, from back in the day. So it's a bit of a shame that the production is so terrible on here. We're dealing with kind of Motorhead inspired speed metal with some thrash metal stuff too. Pretty good songs, but a really strange production. It sounds like almost like a bad demo tape in a way. The vocals sound horrible. It is hard sometimes to figure out what's going on in the songs as well. Again, remember the music, good. The vocals, actually the performance, pretty cool, but the production, not great. And that's a bit of a shame because these were kind of musically and the whole sausage party scene, they were outliers. The music is great, of course, provocative, Manslayer and all that stuff. So yeah, the producer could have done a better job, I think. So that's a shame because it's pretty good speed and thrash metal. And up last, from Brazil, Agonia e Morte by WCHC, death thrash. Kind of a similar situation to a Reek of Putrefaction, that the production is so bad that it's hard to figure out what's going on every now and then, but less so because it's not grindcore. It's just a really, really bad production. Sounds again like kind of a low quality demo tape, and I think the pressing quality is pretty bad too. So bit of a shame. This is just more fun to have in one's collection. if one likes thrash metal and kind of obscure releases. It's not an album I listen to a whole lot. You can certainly hear that there is some quality to the music, but the production just lets it down completely. So there you go, 10 releases from my collection. Good to great music with problematic productions and kind of like problematic in different ways. There were some curveballs. I know a lot of people are mad now, but you know, it's just a weird dude on the internet's opinion. Nothing worth getting mad over. In any case, thanks for watching.